Neopets is one of the longest-running virtual worlds still kicking on the modern internet. The colorful, incredibly involved pet site has had its fair share of odd moments since its release in 1999, from Scientology to black market trading to the ever-revisited P-Gate. There's never been a dull moment in the world of Neopia, and if you like having your nose so deep in other people's business that you can sift through their earliest memories, Neo was made for you. Though the game is known for its very child-friendly atmosphere, heavy censorship, and overall kid-focused audience, it wasn't always so sharply moderated. In fact, it began as quite the opposite. Let's travel back in time to the early years of Neopets and discuss a little-known facet of Neopia's grand history, a blood-bathed, body-slinging good time known as the Ski Lodge Murder Mystery. Before we cover the plot itself, there's some important background information we need to take on. I have etched this website's entire history into my frontal lobe, and when I sleep, I see the dead Chia image rocking me gently back and forth. However, if you're a Neopets scholar yourself, feel free to check out the timestamps in the description to skip directly to the plots. I get it, you hate me. No, it's fine. It's whatever, I'm used to being abandoned, okay? Go ahead. The original creators of Neopets, Adam and Donna Powell, envisioned a site far different from what we see today. Their intention behind Neopets was described as entertaining university students while making some extra money from simple banner advertising. The game had a very small team in its first years, containing only Adam, Donna, and 2 friends, who worked together to develop the OG 1999 site build. Frankly, even being around 4 people at once sounds daunting to me, so props to them for making an entire game. Neopets officially released to the public in November of 1999, changing the landscape of internet games forever, and coincidentally, beginning the butterfly effect that eventually led to this image of Adam Powell. The game's initial look and feel lent to its small-scale, homebrewed creation with 2D, silly art, and rudimentary pet designs. Not saying that to be a jackass, by the way, the original Aisha rules my heart. I am a jackass, just not specifically in this situation, you know? The fun, addictive qualities of Neopets allowed it to grow tremendously by word of mouth over the following months, clocking over 600,000 daily page views by Christmas of that year. Neopets was now raking in users, and their small team couldn't handle the server cost all alone, so they sought some help from an investor. And you know, there's always some shit going on with rich people. In February of 2000, Neopets was incorporated by businessman Doug Doring. Doring was, of course, a Scientologist, which tends to be a bit of an interesting flavor to sprinkle into things. This is where the rumor of Neopets being a subliminal mindfuck to indoctrinate users into Scientology comes from, if you've ever heard it. However, besides the business structure being based on a Scientology org, Adam and Donna kept religion strictly out of the game. Why am I mentioning this? Well, my dear friend, I think it enhances the tale that I have for you today quite a bit when you know it was released while Neo had Doring on the team. I just want to know if he approved any of this. I'm just curious, would love to hear. Also, if I go missing, check the blue building, obviously. Anyway, Neopets is fondly remembered by many players for its plots, which are overarching storylines played out on the site, usually over a longer period of time. Users can often interact with the plots in some way, either by directly influencing the writing itself or just by participating in activities. These plots helped tremendously with immersing the player in the world of Neopia, and Neopets truly pioneered this style of virtual world writing. Plots have changed quite a bit over the years, but those core pieces remain pretty much the same. Now that you've got the foundations, we can skip ahead a bit, landing us in February of 2001. The site was growing exponentially, new team members had been brought on, and the world was waiting to see what Neopets had in store. And they certainly had something. The first piece of Ski Lodge Murder Mystery was unveiled to the public. This plot was the second to use the concept of the now famed staff tournament. The first was Sacrificers in 2000, which I almost did for this video, but I like Ski Lodge Murder Mystery better. Maybe we'll get to it someday. TNT members have always sort of had their own mythicality to them. In the present, you can find them interacting in the unofficial Neopets Discord server and sometimes posting in the Neo boards. They usually tend to have at least a bit of a public presence, so users most likely would have had some sort of opinion on each member of staff, which makes the competition a lot more interesting. Personally, I'd be rooting for TNT Luna if the games were going on right now. I love her. TNT employees go by nicknames on the site, and each have their own little avatars used to represent them. The 32 members who appeared in Ski Lodge Murder Mystery are as follows. Scream if you know them. Adam, known as Number 6, Bygone Jinx, Cookie, Donna, known as Pop-Tart somehow, Dr. Thor, Electric Blue Monkey, Monster Boy, Mr. Plaid, Mr. Roboto, Dave Skorcheski, Jimmy James, Dom Dread, Mr. Pickles, Mr. Black, Maverick, The Beater, Lazarus, Mr. Insane, Black Widow, Tiger Catcher, Cupcake, Jasmine, Rhiannon, Scarlet, Mr. Shankly, Snot, Jay Boogie, Wolverine, The Big Spender, Sweets, Snowflake, and Bubbles. I am fully aware half of those words sound like I'm reading off Midwest emo bands, and I'm sorry that I can't comfort you in the wake of that fact. Some things in life are just unthinkable. If you didn't catch any of those names, it's okay, you don't need to. I just wanted to give you a reference point, but it is now time for me to see if I get demonetized on a fucking Neopets video. As the common worker certainly knows, long days in the office can get tiring after a while. Those 32 members of TNT felt that exhaustion building up, but luckily for them, they had a grand vacation awaiting them. Our story begins at a massive ski lodge where the team could finally kick back and rest their weary heads. Or at least, that was the plan. Nestled in the snowy hills of Terror Mountain, this beautiful mansion was said to be haunted by the spirits of a rich family who previously owned it. A great vacation spot, though, if you like shredding some snowbanks. On Friday of the first week, TNT arrived at the lodge, ready to snowboard and ski to their heart's content. The mansion had reportedly sat unused for hundreds of years, but the thick layer of dust upon the floor was interrupted by wet, slushy footsteps trailing up the stairs. In spite of the odd discovery, the team enjoyed some wintry fun over the next week, settling into their creaky abode. All is calm and bright for our vacationers until Thursday rolls around and disaster strikes. Electric Blue Monkey is found at the end of the winding stairway on display for all to see. His cold body prompts questions from the others there. Did he fall, or was he pushed? Horror filled the thickening air, culling the bright energy among the TNT members. If EBM fell, God willing, one casualty would be the only stain on their extravagant trip, but foul play wasn't out of the question. On Friday, users were treated to a conversation between members. It gave us an insight into the details of EBM's death. He was found by Mr. Roboto, an advocate for animal rights. Dave Skorcheski, another TNT member, seemed suspicious of the man, as EBM reportedly had an altercation with Garen, a loop in the ice caves. Black Widow mentions that Electric Blue Monkey was ran over by a snowplow twice. Coincidentally, Black Widow's life doesn't go on much longer. Her body was found in a hallway by Mr. Plaid the following Monday, who said he was on his way to get a cup of Boravan when he encountered the corpse. According to a coroner, Black Widow was left strangled on the ground. You couldn't talk about gay marriage for a while, and yet this remained fully up and viewable. On Thursday, the very social, well-regarded TNT member Bubbles ended her career. Discovered by Bygone Jinx, a lightsaber-wielding Star Wars fan, Bubbles seemed to be bludgeoned to death with a candlestick. The blood-covered piece was found next to her body, which was lying prone in the dining room. When Jinx attempted to call for medical help, he discovered that the only phone line connected to the lodge had been cut. By the way, I happened to watch Bodies, Bodies, Bodies the week I was writing this, which was a fine movie, by the way. It wasn't great. I didn't enjoy it very much. But anyway, it has basically the same plot to this. Anyway, by the third week, it was clear something else was at play. The stakes had grown high, and each staff member wondered if the next day would be their last. Nobody was safe in the cold grasp of Terror Mountain, and their fears were only worsened by the crumbling of Cookie, who was found beneath about 200 pounds of cookware in the kitchen. her body was discovered crushed by S.E. Thor. But the kitchen held not one but two secrets, and they were both tasty. Week 4 saw the death of Cupcake, who had been desperately trying to piece together clues over the past few days. Clearly, she had flown too close to the sun, and she baked a little too long. Jasmine and Rhiannon, the first to arrive at the scene, had doubts cast upon them. Were they really on a simple stroll together, or was something more sinister lurking? With so many intertwining deaths, it was nearly impossible to deny that an evil was looking to rid the world of TNT. No member was safe from the wrath of whatever monster roamed the mansion, but no staff was safe from accusations either. The thoughts of snow-covered trees and warm nights by the fire had been snuffed out. The day after, we can see another conversation taking place, this time between those very same women, Jasmine and Rhiannon. Rhiannon expresses her fear that they were next, as the criminal had taken 4 girls in a row. Jasmine remarks that Mr. Plaid will protect her, and that the killer might not be so bad if he took out Bubbles, signaling some festering beef. The girls are fighting. Mr. Roboto then attempts to get some ass via a casual discussion of Cupcake's death, which startles the other two. The man says he doesn't like to spend his days worrying, and eventually exits to go to the pool, which is somehow being used in the snow. Only 2 days after that conversation, Jasmine shows up blue in a guest bedroom. However, her death seems a bit different than the others. She's found with a large bump on the back of her head and a broken high heel. Her body is found snug beneath a carpet, leading some members of the team to believe she may have just tripped and fell, smashing her skull in the process. Mr. Plaid, however, insists this was no accident. Scarlett, seen here through the window, laughs at Jasmine's unfortunate state. But she doesn't laugh for long. Soon after, we see Scarlett floating face down in a swimming pool, which is enclosed, by the way, so that solves my other question. Snowflake and Lazarus, 2 other attendees, searched the manor for someone who knew first aid, but Bygone Jinx simply stared in amazement. On Thursday of that week, we're on week 5 now, we see another paired murder. Snowflake should have been running rather than searching because her head was found shoved into a drain pipe. She was found by Jimmy James and the aforementioned Lazarus, with the latter's fingerprints being found around her neck. He claims he was simply checking for a pulse, but you can take that one however you'd like. Journeying forward into week 6, Donna is no longer kicking. Mr. Pickles, another new member, was shocked to see a pile of ash in the shape of Donna's body in the hall. According to TNT Wolverine, who was in the military, she seemed to have been blown up by an exploding potion, a weapon often used in the Battle Dome. TNT Sweets, the sister of the late Bubbles, was the next body on the roster. She was found smashed by an anvil, and unfortunately, cartoon logic didn't work out here. Dave Skorcheski and Tiger Catcher discovered her remains and reportedly argued over who would tell Jay Boogie, a good friend of Sweets, of her death. We are on to week 7. Give it up for week 7. Mr. Plaid has now died, becoming the first man to go after 8 consecutive women met their end. His head was stuck in a cooking pot, boiling away like a nice stew. Delightful. He was found by Dr. Thor, who originally thought he was playing a joke and just went to bed after seeing the body. But just days later, Thor himself was treated to a tour of the kitchen, being frozen alive in a giant block of ice. The ski lodge murderer has proven he doesn't just attack women, so diversity win. Bygone Jinx, the unfortunate person to find old Thor, declined to comment on the circumstances out of fear that speaking marked them next for slaughter. Week 8, baby, we return to the ever-interesting pool, which proved Jinx's method of shutting the fuck up ineffective. He was sliced in half, doomed to float around in the water until a poor soul took him out. Dave Skorcheski, who seemed to be involved in plenty of these cases, reported Jinx to the others. Jimmy James was also present, stating he was upset that the deceased boots were ruined as he was promised them in the event that Jinx died. One day later in the week, landing us on a Friday, a TNT member simply named Snot was eaten alive by utility fish. Rhiannon was incredibly shaken by the sight, describing finding only Snot's skeleton in the water. In week 9, we're greeted with, wait, the team found the killer? Wolverine and Mr. Pickles took a stroll down to the lodge's library, hoping for a good read. Instead, they found Jay Boogie hanging on for dear life with a lightsaber, one previously owned by our last victim, in his chest. With his dying breath, Jay Boogie pointed to Monster Boy and accused him of the nefarious murders committed during their stay. Monster Boy attempted to run, but he was tackled to the ground and apprehended, much to the relief of those still living within the lodge's walls. The members agreed to tie him to a chair, under supervision of 2 lodgers at a time, until the snow melted and authorities could be contacted. The horrible reign of terror that had killed so many precious friends had finally been quelled, and they only needed to keep their eye on Monster Boy for a few days longer. Except when Wolverine and Pickles went to check out a strange noise in the other room, Monster Boy was crushed by a giant boulder, so it wasn't that guy. When week 10 rolled around, our good friend Wolverine was, he was found by Mr. Insane, which frankly, that name doesn't bode too well in terms of innocence, but you know. Lazarus, on the other hand, hinted at finding out some important information. In the same place Wolverine met his end, the library, Mr. Insane was found poisoned a few days later. Lazarus remarked that the murders were artistically inspiring for him, and he's been producing some songs and writing poems. We'll never get to see his completed anthology though, as his death was next. The swimming pool had grown to be a major site of death, with that corpse being the 5th to settle there. Lazarus was boiled alive in week 11, and if you're wondering, he did not come back to life. TNT Maverick ran to tell Mr. Pickles, who was devastated at the loss. He didn't have to grieve for long, though. Mr. Pickles was crushed by a wine rack. Neopets actually used to feature alcoholic items. All of these items have since been changed to child-appropriate alternatives, but for instance, Neo Cola, a large side icon, actually used to be beer. In any case, he's cured of his sadness. You're probably noticing a theme. When someone finds a body, it's more than likely they should get their affairs in order. Dom Dread, no, not current TNT Dom, who was the first to see Mr. Pickles, was preserved in a massive formaldehyde jar in week 12. But this time, a bold move was taken by the infamous criminal. A handwritten note was secured to the jar, which read, "I am the Great Ski Lodge Killer. Any attempts to discover my identity will only hasten your demise. Just ask Cupcake and Lazarus. They found out the hard way. The funniest thing about it is, I'm going to let one of you live, just so I can frame you and watch you go to jail for the murders which I've committed. Boy, is that gonna be funny. So long, suckers." Later that week, our friend Dave Skorcheski was found upside down in the kitchen, with many weapons thrown toward his head. Most of them missed, though. Personally, I would have gotten him in one toss. He was found by Mr. Roboto, who remarked that many people found him conceited and self-absorbed, but that he didn't agree with those rumors. Mr. Roboto, again, has been in the presence of many bodies. Food for thought. Ooh, actually, maybe you don't need to think about that. Mr. Roboto's dead. It was said that Roboto was in the midst of a feud with 2 other lodgers, Mr. Shankly and Tiger Catcher. Rhiannon was the first to find him, but fainted upon seeing his body. Another new face is revealed to us, with TNT's The Beater waking Rhiannon up by slapping her. Poor Rhiannon, despite having the name of a wonderful Fleetwood Mac song, did not go her own way. She reportedly suffered from bouts of amnesia after finding Mr. Roboto, but soon fell to her death in an underground lab. I guess she was no white-winged dove. Tiger Catcher was apparently comparing handwriting samples in the lab at the time, hearing a piercing scream as Rhiannon plummeted to her end. When he went to look for her, his materials were stolen. But, as I'm sure you guessed, Tiger Catcher was found sticking out of the pool's drain in week 14. Jimmy James, who I keep wanting to call Jimmy John, desperately announced that he had no interest in finding out who the killer was, as everyone who investigated died. Do you think that worked? Look into my metaphorical eyes and tell me, do you think that worked out well for Jimmy James? Old JJ? You think he's alive? Yeah, wine bottle to the head. TNT Maverick has started to suspect Adam, who, by the way, is in fact here. Mr. Black, a notorious robber, discovered the body, with Shankly tailing behind. Mr. Black was soon beheaded, with bloody footsteps trailing away from the corpse. A man named the Big Spender arrived on scene with Shankly, and the two hurled opposing accusations at one another. However, soon after, Spender was, well, spent. After all of that carnage, only 4 staff members remained: Adam, the Beater, Shankly, and Maverick. It was anyone's game now, and the remaining members fought incessantly with one another. How could somebody they called a friend become so callous and cold? All of the survivors began to arm themselves with any makeshift weapons they could scrounge up, but it was all, clearly, up to fate. Shankly was accused of being the Big Spender's killer, as the two had a rocky relationship. Shankly vehemently denied this, saying he was making too much money off of the Big Spender to want him dead, but his name was cleared quickly. The Beater, Maverick, and Adam sat down for a meal, only to find a Hannibal-esque treat staring them down. Shankly's head was delicately placed upon a platter, ready to eat, leaving only 3 remaining TNT members and suspects. This concluded week 16. But wait, what's this? There's a video. That is right, my dear friends. We see Maverick's dirty hand clasped around Adam Powell's ankle, dangling him into the abyss. Thankfully, the Beater is just around the corner, watching with horror as Adam falls to his end. With that, our killer is revealed, and Terror Mountain's thick snow has melted generously. But will our final girl escape Maverick's grasp? Only the finale will tell. After the Beater courageously captured Maverick beneath a cage, he was blown out of his binds by a far-off leader who just so happens to match the complexion and silhouette of one Dr. Frank Sloth. When Maverick's head landed in frame, we could see a salad of wires poking out of his skull. Maverick was no killer, but his robot clone certainly was. What a story, what a twist, where's the Oscar? I'm begging, where was this Neopets movie? Where? Give it to me, this is Knives Out on crack. That brings the Ski Lodge murder mystery plot to an exciting end. While this event was actively occurring, players could vote for who they thought the devious criminal was, and earn prizes as well as a few different lookup trophies. Currently, most of these prizes are extremely hard to get and go for tens of millions on the aftermarket. It seems like the trophies given out corresponded to correct guesses, but it's unclear exactly when they were given out during the event. But that wraps up our story. Were you intrigued? Were you enthralled even? I hope you enjoyed this video, and massive thanks to JellyNeo for providing and preserving all of the visuals used here. I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you all next time, maybe for Sacrificers. I love you. Thank you to all of my members. Stay safe, stay wonderful, and goodbye.